Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Empower podcast. This is episode 28 with Nurse Julie. Hi, Nurse Julie.
Hi.
This is September 5th, 2023. What is the Empower podcast? It's a podcast run by healthcare professionals for healthcare professionals and the general public with an overall goal of raising and continuing to raise transparency and awareness within the healthcare field, and to have legislation passed within the state of Colorado and throughout the whole U.S. mandating employers to provide and support employees through wellness programs, including a minimum of 8 wellness days for all healthcare professionals per quarter, a minimum deposit into an HSA account that is tax exempt at the federal, state, and local levels into an HSA account, and the establishment of an anti-retaliation department run by a third party for all healthcare systems. At Empower, we believe in the power of community, diversity, and inclusivity to create positive change and improve society. Our goal aims to amplify voices that often go unheard, featuring interviews with individuals and organizations who are making a difference in their communities and beyond. And inspiring stories, we strive to raise awareness and promote action towards a more equitable and sustainable healthcare realm throughout the world. Do you know any healthcare professionals or anybody within your community that's a community champion, which we say, or anybody that's a community healer as well, who could benefit from this podcast or being on here? Please invite them to check us out. We're literally almost everywhere. You can name it, Spotify, YouTube. Please go ahead and check us out if you can. Like, subscribe, and go ahead to the Empower email at empowera1@proton.me. All right, Julie, where are you coming to us from today?
I'm coming to you from Colorado.
Colorado, Air 5. We encourage our listeners, again, to share their experiences in any way, anonymously or upfront if you'd like to be. We're also looking to continue to, in any way, shape, or form, improve. If there's something you like on the show, something you don't like, something you think would be more beneficial, feel free to, again, send in that feedback. It does so much for us, and it already has. So you can follow us on your preferred platform of choice, again, to stay informed in the ever-changing landscape of healthcare. It's time to sit back, be yourself no matter what, and get ready to be empowered. All right, Julie, so this is a part of the show that we give a big community thank you or shout out to anybody in the workforce, wherever they may be, or anywhere throughout the community that you would like to give special outreach and gratitude towards.
Awesome. I really want to give a shout out to other nurses, really to all the nurses, really in the whole world. And I also want to give a shout out and really just acknowledge all of the patient care professionals out there, whether that's pharmacists, environmental services, nutrition services, everybody that really, the surgeons that really take care of patients. Just want to acknowledge them and really give them a shout out because it really does take something to work with people and care about people's health.
Wow. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I find a part in the show where I say, Brett, does this guest make you feel empowered? And Nurse Julie, yes, you definitely make me feel empowered. Thank you. I wanted to start off, if we can, with the first question, which is, in your opinion, what is the integrity of healthcare like for you, or overall spectrum for you?
The word, I love the question because it really, the first thing that comes up for me is a yes. And if I look at integrity, like really what works and what doesn't work, does the healthcare system have integrity? Does it work? Well, it works in some ways and it doesn't work in other ways. I would say that it has integrity in how there is a system of healthcare in place that, we didn't have even 100 years ago, where we can really take care of people. And I like the word empower them in their health and provide them with services and resources we didn't speedily give them not too long ago. What I think doesn't work here is I want to say a lot. It's really what I'm present to a lot in my everyday work.
Yeah.
Just the amount of resources that aren't available that could be, and the amount of education and the, really ultimately what I see is that there's just a need for healthcare and there's not enough service to provide it. And I think a lot of that comes down to cost. And there isn't a lot of integrity with the cost of healthcare right now.
Hmm.
Whether that's for the consumer, well, especially the consumer, the insurance companies, pharmaceuticals, the CEOs, the CNOs, the CFOs. I mean, really, that doesn't work. Right now, the financial structure of healthcare just really doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. And it shows. I mean, it definitely shows. And I appreciate that sharing, is to see it as we can see where the money trail is. And it became apparent. I guess the way I kind of look at it is that, at least for me, and if it's not the same for you, go ahead, let me know. But it's like that scene from The Wizard of Oz towards the end where Toto finally goes up, has the courage, and goes, you know what? Let's move this curtain. Literally grabs the curtain, pulls it back, and then you finally see the wizard. And I kind of feel that way with COVID, and just even the prior part of, and I like to bring it up, is the opioid epidemic that was happening prior, and the impact that had too, and where it was, even, I guess for me, even where the trail started, if I had to start. But wow.
Yeah.
And your worth. I feel that in your voice. I feel that in your presence, and what it is you share. And I really encourage other listeners to, if you feel that, that's it. Turn the knob up. Like that's it. Like, trust your gut, in my opinion. But again, not any of that, but it's just my own meandering experience and Julie's. So not that.
Here, I'll give you some examples.
Yeah.
I'll give you some examples of what doesn't work about that. What doesn't work is the commercialism of healthcare. How some hospitals can have, let's say, an ENT, ear, nose, throat doctor on call 24 hours a day. And really, that's just a phone call. Can they take a phone call for that hospital overnight? And the answer is yes. They're contracted to do that. Maybe they'll get a phone call. Maybe they'll get 20. I don't know. But another hospital down the street has no ENT contracted with that hospital. It might even be in the same hospital system, but they're not contracted with that hospital. So if a patient walks into that hospital needing a doctor's advice, needing a doctor to tell them, hey, do you need surgery tonight? Do you need to be admitted to a hospital? Do you need some sort of procedure? Or can you go home and make an outpatient appointment? Can you, go home and go to bed and not worry about anything? They can't do that from that hospital without an ENT. That hospital then has to transfer that patient from that hospital to another hospital. And who incurs the fees of that? Well, the patient does, and or their insurance company, which sometimes might even be the government. The government provides a lot of supplements for low-income families. And that's what's there, is that patient has to go to this other hospital down the street, pay for that, all to just may not have told them to go home.
Yeah.
That's an example. It might be that, there might be a child in, let's say, Las Vegas, Nevada, who needs a sexual assault kit because there's concern for that. And there's no nurse, which is called a SANE nurse, SANE. It's a sexual assault nurse examiner. It's very specialized training, a lot of liability, as you can imagine why.
Absolutely.
And they might not have the whole state of Nevada to help support that child during what would be a very vulnerable and crucial time. And so, that's one example. Does that work? No, that doesn't work. There's just not resources. Now, are there resources out there? Yes. But are we really accessing them? No.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think the other one was I just went with my partner and my brother to the Akron Pride event, and when I went over to the county that I was born in, I went over to their public health, if I can chime this in here, table, and I legitimately asked them, because having lived in Colorado, seeing what the resources were when it came to getting tested, just in general for this too. Just had to be a resident, and they would be able to send it to your home. I tried it out myself. It was awesome. They'd send it to my home. I sent it back. But I came here and I went up to them and I said, do you guys have that as an option for someone like me? And I sent them my situation. I was like, I'm not technically a resident here just yet. And they're like, no, we can't. You have to go ahead and go to our actual office and we can do it there. And I was like, okay, what's the timing for an appointment? Do you guys have more availability? Is there where I can schedule that now? No. Yeah, you just have to go in. You just have to go in, and it's, at least for me, to see that there's a distinction that I just had to go in. But in this case, if this is, it's a possibility to see that, it's I guess through local government and state government, and their own funding that comes from the federal government, is it really any of the situations? Is it really being distributed where it could be? And especially targeting these high, and it could be also based upon socioeconomic status. Not only that, but then other forms of identification as well. That could make a total difference, regardless of where they're at. But yeah, wow, that's something to take on, Nurse Julie.
Right, and how long did it take you to get that information?
Oh my gosh, and yeah, I had to do that myself. Correct. Yeah, and making sure first of all they were open to get it correct, and that was something even of itself.
Yeah, I mean, just how many phone calls to right now in healthcare, it really is almost like a full-time job to take care of your health. It can be, depending on what your circumstances are, but to call the doctors, get the education, get the follow-up appointments, get the follow-up prescriptions, go to the pharmacy, get your insurance to approve it. And it just goes on. And does it have integrity?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and that's just
in
talking.
some ways, it's great we even have it as an option. And in other ways, I just don't think it works.
Yeah. No, and even looking at, I know back in nursing school, one of the things that I did remember, I don't remember where the statistic came out of, but I looked it up just online too to clarify it. But I know the statistic was like how many people within the population per capita, one doctor would be able to take care of it. Like the way the distribution was, and this was back in right before 2017. I was in this class, and I'm looking it up now. The number of nurses licensed to practice per capita in the United States is 17.6 per 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's the equal distribution of really seeing what it is like by county, by the localities. I mean, I even had the person I was talking to that they're up in Wisconsin, and when it comes to availability, there's just a town clinic, and it has weird hours, and it's like, I guess, how could we go ahead and revisit and, acknowledge the upsets, see that they're upsets. And I know that there's even other upsets and other forms of legislation and throughout other parts of the country and the world that they look at. So why not use that system, or at least look at that kind of a system? And see how it works. I mean, they did that. I know I'm re-mentioning it, but during the opioid epidemic, I know Dayton, Ohio, their statistics out of there, because the rates were so high, set the standard for continuing research, for them to even come up with statistics or even just a baseline as to how to handle that and to look at it and to examine it and go from there. And
then you look at how much money the CEOs and the CFOs and the CNOs are making for a hospital system, how much their shareholders are actually making. Yet they have to complain about the people on the ground wanting a raise, and we have strikes happening all over the country, particularly for nurses.
Mm-hmm. All right. Can we lead into the next question then too? Because we're kind of leading into it, but yeah, what in your opinion then too is happening in healthcare? You're just talking about strikes, so, and I want to go off this, but I want to hear what it is you have to say about it.
I just think that it's. We could go into other topics.
Oh, you can return as a guest too. I appreciate this all, but yeah.
It's just this idea that it's like with any industry, it's not a problem till it's a problem, but you really look at the amount of intimacy and sensitivity that goes into the most vulnerable. I mean, your loved one goes into a hospital, let's say they're in a car accident, or, they got COVID, and let's say they're in an intensive care unit and they're intubated, they're sedated, they're given medication that you don't know about, you don't consent to, you don't even have the health literacy to really make that decision for that person. You don't really know what's going on, and you're trusting these strangers with your loved one's life and the trajectory of the rest of their life. And we don't really talk about what it's like for that person taking care of that patient when they don't get a lunch break and they don't have enough money to pay their bills, and they're away from their family for 12 and a half hours a day, excluding commute time, not even including commute time. And we talk about that, and then they say, oh, well, look, they're trying to strike because they're money hungry and they're trying to get more money from us. Doing the work. And what would you pay for that? What is the cost of that? And when you're giving them a higher workload and taking care of more patients and giving, when I say like there's a liability there, it's not just legal liability. It's not just financial liability. It's if a nurse is given too many patients or too many assignments or too many tasks or just more and more and more and being told they need to go to this standard and this standard and this is the best standard of care and you do this, but it's unrealistic. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it comes down to it's just not safe for that person, and that person can't speak for themselves. And hospitals are able to make that decision on what's safe and what's not without much recourse. Mm. It all comes down to, well, the nurse was liable. Why'd the nurse give that medication? Well, why didn't the nurse give that medication? Or they never find out about it to begin with.
Oof. Yeah. Nope. Things that are omitted, left out, and that's in any industry, really, anywhere that kind of stuff's coming out, and I feel it's getting harder and harder to be able to do that. But wow, no, just seeing that overall distinction of just the overall impact on that, and if I can go full circle too, is that leads down to the overall thing which is the patient experience. Is what that has as the impact on them, because I guess it was Billy who was on here. He had the one quote by an author. Her name was Katie Reed, I believe. And it's better to give someone the best of you than what's left of you. And how I feel what it is you're saying is that overall compounding of finding what it is that can be that just that fine medium to squeeze all the juice out of the lemon and then go back to the rind and squeeze it some more. When mm-hmm. and it is, and I think it's its own little baseline that we're reestablishing after literally, in my opinion, turning up the workload knob for sectors all throughout the world. From there, it's literally it is an upset in my opinion, and to disappear it and to see that overall ability to, I think, be present in that, but still to have, I'm on the sidelines too at the effects of it. Like I know some registered nurses who worked in the ICU, and there was one, I think I'd said it the story before, made clear over $100,000, but like about $70,000 of that was put into therapy for herself, to rebuild herself, to make her even want to be present at the bedside again. There's this impact of, there's projections that are out there and whatnot, but like just to hear the overall stories of this, and she hasn't been a guest on the podcast for those who are like, where did I hear this? No, it was my own personal meandering experience. This was back actually, right as COVID was started. I actually knew this nurse. I met up with her at like a public meetup in Arizona when I was there before on assignment. But, and for you, even as yourself as a nurse, sharing for not only for others, but for yourself too. Do you feel these things on yourself? Do you feel the impact that they really have?
What I feel is when I go to an advisory council for a CNO, and the advisory, and the CNO is expressing to the staff the selfishness of travel nurses to an entire staff of an entire hospital, that to me is a problem, because it's like, I don't have the perfect analogy for it, but it really is like, hold on, so the people in charge are the little guy for their budget issues, or the little guy because they're not making as much profit as they wanted to. And it's like, yeah, but you wouldn't have a business without the little guy.
Yeah.
And, their thought process, what was said to me was, you're not seeing this from the 60,000 foot view, the 40,000 foot view. And I know hospitals are going out of business. There are patients being held in the emergency department that need an inpatient floor of their hospitals because they don't have services at one hospital but need it at another. And they're having to wait weeks and weeks to even get moved to see a provider that they need, because the hospital can't accept them because they just don't have the capacity to take those patients. So you said patient satisfaction. I actually think that's a double-edged sword. While we need to satisfy the patients, we absolutely do. We do. But when budgets are created based on a patient is, what that ends up looking like is, did we convince them? Did we have that customer service? Did we manipulate that?
That distinction.
Or did we actually take care of them? Did we actually do recommend what we'd really recommend?
Mm-hmm. And are they a readmit? Were they really, I guess for me, set up for a true successful discharge, right?
Right. But as long as they, that's one of the things you're listening is, so hospitals are reimbursed by Medicare and Medicaid on their patients. and one, who's got time to fill out that packet? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But okay, so somebody is satisfied. They might say, yeah, the nurses and doctors communicated great. Okay, but they got a central line infection because of a bad decision, a bad practice somebody did. They might not know that.
Right? Because
they might not know that's what caused that issue. Or it might be that, the reoccurring patient is somebody who is addicted to opioids and only wants that medication. And the doctor, what best practice would be to put them on a weaning process to help get them off those drugs instead of giving them more. But if you tell that patient, no, I'm not giving you more drugs, you think they're going to rate you well?
Valid point. Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. Wow. Because then hospitals turn into hotels.
Yeah, there's a distinction there too.
Did we fluff your pillow enough?
Mm-hmm.
Or did we save your life when you weren't aware that we could have not saved your life?
Yeah. Wow.
And I just think that there's a lot going on right now in the news and everywhere else around travel nurses or nursing in general, with all of these strikes happening where, nurses do need more money, want more money, deserve more money. And hospitals are saying, well, we don't have the money. You're going to put us out of business if you ask for it. It's like, well, then you need to figure out a way to make this work, because you don't have a hospital without nurses.
Yeah, nurses or PT, OT. I'm curious on what that looks like too. I know turn up the knob on nurses here specifically, but they're still traveling professionals too. And just to see the distinction there in their rates. I know just today, I'm trying to look for it here. I know I got it. If I can share it too for everybody else, but I got an actual text for a strike that's going on. It was in Oregon, and the rate was aggressively high. And I for me, looking at that, I messaged them and I said, let's just stand it with what I was trying to transition at, and that was to go to work from home, or to look into a hybrid situation. And they weren't down for it. They're like, what's your specialty? And they just went back into it. And it's like, and even today alone, I think I had 3 or 4 calls that were all asking for bedside jobs. And for all of them, I'm like, and some of the times I do, and it may leave a bad taste in their mouth, but I talk about projections as to what, healthcare professionals are to be leaving the bedside as of 2030, as of 2024, like what that looks like because of what's happening. And it's amazing to see this aggressive rate come out for the strike. And
they even now all of a sudden can afford.
Correct. And the thing is that most people don't know is too, if they're newer to the industry, again, not financial advice, none of this, but just my own meander experience from what I've seen too is, you can share too, Julie, is these high juicy rates that they're throwing out now that come out of nowhere. You have a higher rate of being canceled. You have a higher rate of sitting in I think you had told me the story a while ago, sitting in a room with a bunch of other new hires, didn't know what was going to happen. There was no structure, right? It was something along those lines. Did you want to share that or no?
What did you want me to share about it?
Oh, no, that's what that kind of look. I mean, it wasn't a strike assignment, but I feel like it's a similar situation that people will go into when they accept these rates, where you don't know what's going to happen. And
oh yeah, they wave enough money in front of you and they treat you like, well, I'm paying you enough, you should do whatever the heck I want, even if it's unsafe, even if you're not prepared for it, even if you're not trained in it.
And I think another one that I had mentioned, I don't know if you wanted to speak to this. I remember I was having a conversation when I was back in Colorado working on staff with a CNA. And I said to her, I was like, what's something you were really looking into within the healthcare field? And she was like a bridge program is what she said, or a transitional program for work to be, supported by your employer. So if you do have certain skills that can transfer, you can do them. And then if she's like, and then if I want to go back and do this, then I can do that. And I was like, that's an awesome idea. Like, I would like that too, or at least some kind of an area of, I guess, I don't know how else to really say, but like a relief from the specialty in which you're in, to still be able to give back to a system that's still functioning, if that makes sense. So, yeah, but wow. Is there any empowering pieces of advice at this time, line of work that you do work in?
Do whatever work you need to do to empower yourself, to really manage yourself, because it really does take something. It takes something for you. And I know people hear that all the time. I know I heard it before I was a nurse, and while I was training to be a nurse, and even while I was training new specialties in nursing, like, make sure you're self-caring. And I started to hate those words, self-care. But really do it. to really take care of yourself. And what that looks like is different for everybody. It might be hiking, it might be traveling, it might be just not going into work on your days off. It might be clocking in on time and clocking out on time, and it might be that simple. But, it takes something from your partner for you to do shift work, and that's the advice I'd give you, is just do what you love. And, it still might feel like work, but do what you love and just make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. And even if you don't know what it looks like, sketch it out, even if it's in your head, and see what potentially it can look like, or revisit what used to really bring you back, whatever it may be. And to rediscover that, if I can share, I thank you for that. That's literally one of the great piece of empowering advice. I revisited being a DJ again, which I did back in high school and college, and I went back to my SoundCloud. I had not done that in a while, but a weekly D&D night, and it got canceled because of Labor Day, which makes sense. But I just went back and I was like, I'm going to go look into this. And what it did for me, oh my gosh, Nurse Julie, you have no clue what it did.
Might be D&D, that's right. Might be camping, might be, whatever it is. One of the things that I really recommend to people is they keep learning. And nursing isn't all, healthcare isn't all about learning the science books, the science textbooks we're given. It's not discovering for yourself what's in the way of you being really effective at what you're really committed to doing. And it might be that simple as, doing a D&D campaign really gives you the space to show up to work and take care of somebody who's suffering.
Mm-hmm. I've engaged it into conversation with patients too. If they ask, like, well, what do you do when you're not at work? I'm like, do you really want to know? And they're like, yeah. Okay, well, I play D&D. No way, so do I. And I'm like, no way. And then it's just sometimes.
I wonder how many nurses would say I drink.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the main statistics that helped with the creation of Empower was for the Case for Action, was healthcare professionals are 2 to 3 times more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol than general public. Yeah, valid point. And if they say drink, do they drink?
I can't wait to see this bottle of wine.
Oh, I thought you meant like lemonade or like a really nice tea for but valid point there. There are some people that's literally like, once I get my paycheck, X, Y, and Z, So, and if that's what it looks like for them, and I hope they can, hopefully, if it becomes to be a upset, they can disappear and recreate and still create community,
Yeah, that'd be great. Because we need those. We really do need people in healthcare. So I really want to encourage people to keep doing workplace, and I keep asking myself, is this what I want to be doing? And I keep coming back with a resounding yes, it really is. And I don't know what that always looks like, but it's what's needed and wanted in the world. And there's some things to really work out. There's some integrity to be restored. And I really do think people restoring integrity for themselves can have it be possible in this profession.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you for being a guest here. I didn't know if you had your empowering quote and or us back, if we can.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, in just a moment.
Sure.
Okay. My quote is going to be by a guy you might have heard of called Emerson. Mm-hmm. And the quote goes, "Finish each day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities have crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. You shall begin it serenely and with too high a spirit to be in contact with your own."
I love it. Thank you, Nurse Julie. This has been episode 28. Thanks, folks.